12 Rules for Life is a book by Jordan Peterson, released this year, I think January 2018, and this is my review of his book. I listened to the book by audio form on Audible, and I didn't read his book. Don't own a copy, and so I guess at times I didn't take on all the information because you're listening, and sometimes I listen in the car or at work. So there's a tendency not to take in all the information. So I think eventually I need to read the book, but I think it's beneficial to listen because Jordan Peterson does the narration himself, and certainly his narration is very compelling, and the way he talks and conveys the information through the audible format. So, first of all, this review is going to be span over at least 2 parts, and this part is to discuss the general messages or the general themes and criticisms that you may come up with. And first point to mention really is the audience that he's writing to. Now, ironically, for me, and I don't know whether it was a tendency for why I've listened to the book, but for me, I think he was writing for predominantly male and in their 20s, maybe early 30s. And but I've heard some people say, well, he's writing for the white male in his 20s and 30s. Personally, I believe that race doesn't necessarily have anything not to say it doesn't have anything to do with it, but it's not the predominantly conveying message within the book. He doesn't really talk about race that much, and I think, although being a white male, I don't necessarily get up every day thinking that I am a white male. It's not something that I identify with. However, I am aware that being a white male is a characteristic of my personality, whether I like it or not. So race does have something to do with it, but I think Jordan Peterson wasn't necessarily writing the book for a specific race. I think he was writing the book for a specific culture, and that's Western culture, Western society. And whether people like it or not, that is predominantly white. That's not to say people from other ethnicities can not get anything out of it, by all means. I think every single race, and mainly gender, but gender's a different topic, can get something out of it. So gender, I think he genuinely wrote this book for predominantly males. I think he sees the male issue within society as a problem. That's not to say women cannot get anything out of it, but the women will have a hard time in the respect of he seems to have a view that women and their place in society is more traditional in that sense, but their place is within the family, their place isn't necessarily within the career, and if you seek a career path then and you're a woman, then you're going to have a difficult time, and but that's not to say that it's impossible. So, being the predominantly being the race and the age group that Jordan Peterson was writing towards, for me, I guess that's why I found it appealing. But at the same point, I think more importantly, I found these themes more compelling because of my research and my education that I've embarked upon over the last few years. I've embarked upon a journey of trying to understand the truth, the true meaning of being, the true meaning of living, what it means to be human, what it means to be intelligent, sociable, the quest of what it means, and I think that's what Jordan Peterson was conveying in his book, and why I feel compelled to do a review. I've never done a review like this for a book before, and I think for me, it's giving a path, a direction in life, and a guidebook for how to approach life. I think part of the issue is that for me, I don't have children. Part of the book was surrounding on how to approach having children, how to approach their upbringing, and so I think I would want to revisit the book when I do have children. And I think that'll give me a different outlook on the book. 5, 6 years, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the line, I'll have a different outlook on life, and I can get from the book that I want. So the second thing people don't realise is that Jordan Peterson wrote the book for a mass audience. He didn't write it for necessarily the intellectual and academics. And some of the themes from the book are nothing new. They should be nothing new. Because he tried to make a book that's accessible to as many people as possible, as many IQs or intellectuals as possible, and the everyday man on the street. Now, he could have written a book that's very inaccessible. He's very capable of doing that. But I think it was an intentional move not to do that. And with that, he wrote about his personal life and his trials and tribulations for his personal life and his friends and families thereforth. So when reading the book, I think that was his approach to have the content relatable to a mass audience. If you're talking about religion all the time, if you're talking about myths and legends, and without tying those into personal experience, people will find that very hard to relate to. So from a mass audience point of view, so Jordan Peterson was trying to write a contemporary book. He wasn't trying, but at the same time, make it timeless. And that's, just my view. He may dispute that. I think that's just what I get from the book itself. That he is making sure that everyone can connect with the book, as many people as possible. Of course, he's never going to appeal to everyone, and but also he wants to appeal to an audience in years to come, not just the current generation. He's trying to appeal to the next generation and generation after that. So if they find the book in years to come, they can pick it up and it'll still be relevant now or then as it is now. So I think that's really important to consider, that he's not just writing a book for now, and I think that's why he uses religion. He uses religion because that is the timeless element, and myths and legends are the timeless elements that portray his message that he's trying to convey. And I think that's why some critics say, well, there's nothing new that he's writing. Well, no, there isn't. There isn't anything new. But if you write a message and formulate it in a way that nobody has heard before in that structure, the mass audience can definitely get something out of it. So then goes on to the hero's journey of the religion and the myths and legends that he goes into, and say that's nothing new. The hero's journey and the idea of sacrifice. We are to sacrifice a part of ourselves, and that's what the myths and legends tell us. And in many ways, this is just reiterating, reconnecting with those neural pathways which are built into us as humans. And they're only built into us because of the struggle that our ancestors have gone through. And those stories are just iterating those struggles that our ancestors have gone through as well. And a lot of people say, well, the book was too long, could have been shortened and condensed down. But to me, the reason why the Bible was so long and dense is because there's a lot to get out of it. There's a lot of metaphors that you can, interpret in different levels. And, if you were just to write down a bullet point of the actual points and messages that you're trying to convey, then, you could brush over it and ignore part of the messages. Whereas if you're trying to convey a story, different cultures and different societies can interpret that story how they wish in years to come. So that interpretation is key, and making that timeless is key for future generations. Now